Hi, welcome back to the channel. Well, straight away on my Brabus tour, I started getting requests for builds of various cars. Even one request to build all the cars, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. So today I'll run through each build as quickly as I reasonably can with just a few little bits of justification, maybe one or two options as well. Also at the end, a little bonus section. What happens to all these cars when I finish this dedicated garage tour? Where do they go? Are they sold? Are they changed? Well, if you care, I'll tell you. A few important points before I start. I won't be mentioning armour, performance parts or bulletproof tyres, they're always up to you. And if I skip over an item, it's simply because it's stock and not worth talking about, although in most cases I will try to remember to mention stock. And most importantly, this video is chapter marked. I'm not intending you to watch the whole video, just really to pick and choose the car you want, so do make proper use of the chapter marks. And otherwise, it's time to roll into the first car. Our first build then, the Brabus Roadster from 2008, the Tesla Roadster, and of course the coil Voltic here is based on the Tesla Roadster and the Series 2 Lotus Elise, which itself the Tesla Roadster is based on. So anyway, there we go. With bumpers, you only get to choose the front bumper, and that is stock. The hood is an important option. The vented hood, there's a lot of slats here on the Brabus version of the Roadster, and perhaps on the standard version, I can't remember. For the lights, it's up to you. I've left them stock. They already look quite a bright bluey colour to me though. Whatever plate you like. The primary and the secondary colour on this car are simply a classic ice white. For the roof, well, I've gone no roof. This is how it was shown. It's how most people would probably drive it. I don't know if the stock roof on the car would have been a black canvas roof or a white hardtop, but if you know, you could go for any of those options. Skirts are stock. The spoiler, part of the aero pack I think that Brabus put on, the carbon wing, because it is a black spoiler. You don't get many choices on this rather early car. Suspension down at competition, doesn't look too far off. The wheels, we're very lucky, we've got some wheels that are really close. If you go into the sport category and into chrome, you can take these Feroce RR. They look really good. The windows are irrelevant, they are down anyway, and that completes the build of the Brabus Roadster. On then to the 850 6-litre Biturbo. Based on a Mercedes S-Class Coupe, this car here is a bit sort of E-Class, a bit sort of S-Class, but it's the closest we have, and there's a lot of options on this. I have done a video actually on all the sort of customization you can do on this free car from the street. Anyway, moving through, bumper, front bumpers, we don't want over the top, but I've gone Euro bumper just to add this little piece on the bottom to reference the slightly aggressive aero that's on the car that we're building. Stock is best for the rear bumper. On the exhaust, the dual carbon exhaust really sort of hides them away, the four pipes, and that's good because they're slightly recessed on the real car. For the grille, I only want one big bar with the big B in the middle here. Although I have to have two different coloured bars here, I do think primary big badge grille is the best. Hood, very important, we want the Ridgeline hood to get these two raised parts here. For lights, definitely I would put them on xenons in this case because this is an older car. I think xenons would have been all the rage when this came out. No livery, plates up to you. Respray is simply a classic black. The secondary, which you'll see is just doing the mirrors, I have a classic graphite because they're carbon mirrors. However, as I mentioned in the main video, we're building here the show car, because when this car went to production it just looks so similar to the standard S-Class Coupe of the day, and it dropped these nice copper wheels and things, so we are doing the show car. I didn't do the show car colour because I know that satin colours can cause problems when people are trying to do them, and I just simply left it as it was, so it's an easy build. However, let's in a second have a look at and see if we can paint it the correct colour as well, if you want to and if your system supports it, or either your platform. Roll cage, none. Roof, there are no roof fins on the car. I don't know if the car's a carbon roof or not, but it's fairly relevant on a black build anyway. Skirts, I think even custom skirts 1 is a bit much. However, the skirt level here needs to be the same level as the bumper. So if you've picked the Euro bumper, you do need to pick the skirt to make the car look right. The ducktail spoiler is nice, that's really close. Suspension lowered is about right. It's an older car, but it can go really low, this car, and you don't want it too low. Even stock is not far off. For the wheels, into the street category, concave racer. They're quite close in style. They're not perfect, but they're also a lovely looking wheel, and that's despite the little lip round here. I painted them in dark copper. It's not as coppery as I would like, and if you're on next gen, you've probably got a nicer wheel colour that you can pick. Windows, they could actually just be none. Between none and light smoke, I would say either is a good option there. Okay, I promised you we would try and paint it properly, so respray, primary colour, matte black, escape, spend a little bit of time in the metallic section, back out as far as, say, the number plate, where we'll make a free change, back into respray, primary colour, pearlescent, which you will now allow. Let's get a fairly brightish sort of pearlescent on there. I think frost, no, these are a bit too bright. I think silver's as far as we'd want to go, maybe even dark steel. There we are. And now for our secondary colour, well, you know, I think we can leave it just like it is. It still looks a bit like a carbon mirror to me. And if you can do that on your platform and you can give it this satin colour, then that would just complete the build, not forgetting to go back and put your number plate back. Very briefly then, this is what it looks like with the satin paint scheme. Yeah, I think that looks really good. Okay, now to the Porsche Taycan. Starting with the bumpers, I did go for the most aggressive, and I know we have these little bars, but they do have a lot of carbon aero at the front. If you can't put up with little bars, you have to back off a bit to something like carbon splitter. Rear diffuser, I went carbon. There's so much carbon on the exterior of these cars. Always take the carbon option if you're in doubt. Stock hood. For the lights, this one has xenons, but let's correct this now and go back to stock. I would say either stock or car meet lights would be perfect. Carbon mirrors again, as discussed. Your own choice of plate. Respray, both the primary and the secondary are a classic black. And if you look, the secondary is changing nothing on this build. Skirts, there's not much to do. The stock skirt is okay. I just changed it to a carbon colour with the carbon skirt option. And for spoiler, this is frustrating. I wanted a little carbon ducktail, but we go straight into things like that. And this, there is no subtle ducktail, so none. I think street looks about the right level for the car. Now wheels, interesting. The S Racer wheels from the sport class are pretty close. But of course we have a two-tone wheel with some diamond cut parts and some black parts. So it comes down to you. If you put them in just painted black, the thing is just going to look murdered out. And I don't think that works well on this sort of Brabus car. So I went for a shinier option. And as I hate the grey alloy colour, I went chrome. So sport, chrome, S Racer there. And that's it. The windows, as discussed on some of the other cars, if you've watched the build, could be none or light smoke. It's up to you. They really, in reality, have the tiniest of tints. I just feel, I don't know, in a GTA garage, I go slightly more tinted. That completes the build of the Taycan by Brabus. The Brabus 600 for Range Rover, as it says on the website, the Baller STD. There are no arch covers. For the body trim, I will freely admit that in my garage tour it was on stock trim here for the contrasting trim on the side and on the front. On reflection, I'm thinking that is slightly too light. So I have actually gone for the secondary paint here and darkened it a little bit, and that's how we're going to leave that. For the front, this small splitter here, as they call it, I think that's about right. There's definitely an aero kit made of carbon on the car, and we do want to reference that. but at the back I think we're best just leaving it stock. For the exhausts, none are quite right, but these quad round bore exhausts, they're pretty close. The hood should be stock. The lights I left stock. For the mirrors, carbon mirrors. If in doubt on a Brabus, make it carbon. They did. No mud guards. For the respray, primary, then classic black. You could always do a crew black, of course, for this or any other black car, just to get slightly blacker. For the secondary, I went with the dark steel. As I said, it's doing the side here. You could go slightly lighter on silver, but that's very close to stock, so I think dark steel is fine. Trim. I made a joke in the video, and I said, look, it comes in pistachio green, but I ordered grey. Well, there was a reason for that. In fact, two reasons. Number one, if you look at these external pictures of the car, well, it looks like a light grey interior in there to me. But the other one is, let's have a look at the greens that are available. Dark green and olive green, racing green, sea green, etc. None of them are anything close to pistachio. Lime green here. I wish there was lime green available for the Fiesta Neon. That would have been really good, because that car in fact did come with a lime green interior. So we can't do the light green, so let's have the light grey. Roof, I have no idea even which is correct. I couldn't see on any photos. I like the full primary roof. Spoiler, we want a tiny extra raised bit. Well, we can have a tiny cutout bit by going carbon trunk cutout, so that's pretty close. No sun strips. Suspension, did I go a bit low? Possibly. Lowered is maybe a bit closer, up to you. If in doubt, I always go one stage lower. For the wheels, I painted the stock wheels. So if I just go into street category, that's stock wheels, that's painted. I think that's really effective. I think it looks very much like the monoblock wheels that Brabus fit to so many of their cars. I have a video on how to do this. I'll try to link it below, but if not, it's easy enough to find. But if you can't do it, or you won't do it, then you could go for something like the concave racer here. I think they're a similar-ish pattern. They look extremely good on the car, even with the little diamond turned lip that I wish wasn't on there. There's a number of other wheels that you could probably use as well, especially in the street and the track category. There's some very nice wheels. But yeah, if you can paint the stock ones, go ahead. And finally, on the windows, I gave these a dark smoke because I felt that the tint was quite noticeable on the website, and also because so many of these cars have a very, very dark smoked window on them. But light smoke might be closer. I think none is no good, so somewhere on those two. That completes the build of the Brabus 600 for Range Rover. Okay, here we have the Dubster as the black and gold 800. Just before I start, this is the Dubster, or the Dubster 1 as it's sometimes called, but this build would work equally well on the Dubster 2 or the Dubster Custom. The way you can tell which is if the spare wheel is in the centre, it's the Dubster 1, the one you can steal from the street. If it's off to one side, then it's the Dubster 2, which is the one that tends to spawn in chrome or in gold, and there's various guides online on finding those. I say either works. So for the front bumpers, I just went stock in the end. We don't have all the winching and stuff like that on the car that we're building. The rear bumpers also stock. For the exhaust, in the end I went stock. I certainly don't want those blue tips on the other two. Fenders are just stock. We don't have the snorkel. Grille stock. It's looking pretty stock, isn't it? Stock hood as well. Lights are really up to you. I think on this one I have the xenons, and they look pretty good on this one. Plate is of course up to you. I just went black on the plate. Primary is black and secondary is black, both classic. For the roof, this is a little bit of customization we could do, which is to put the spotlights on and the roof rack. Went stock on the side step. Everything else was just sort of too big. Suspension actually stock because this car rides so low as standard. I didn't want to go any lower. Lower? Low. Tailgate is just stock. And for the wheels, I know I hummed and hawed a little on these wheels, but I think, yes, they're the Forged Star from the track category, which are a wonderful wheel. If you can't do it, if you haven't unlocked it yet, Modern Mesh, for example, one further up would work, and there are one or two other wheels scattered around that would work for this one. Painted dark copper, and the windows, I blacked the whole thing out really with a dark smoke on the windows. So there we are, an almost stock build on the car. So I say it doesn't matter which one you take, because if you have a Dubster 2 you'll actually be removing most of the extras that they put on it anyway. Okay, the 850 based on the Merc GLS is an extremely easy build because this vehicle only has pretty much paint and wheels that you can do to it. So as we go down, you see there's no real options. You could choose what sort of lights you have on here. Carrying on down, and you get to the respray, and big surprise, it's black. And the secondary is black. Can't do the interior. You can do suspension, which I've got down as low as it will go, the competition. Carrying on to the wheels, which are Forged Star from the track category, and they work really well because the shape is basically almost perfect. On some photos they look grey, on some they look more diamond turned just with a reflection, but we can't have chrome. So here I simply painted them stone silver. You could also go slightly brighter on the alloy colour, but I don't know, I think the stone silver works. I gave the windows a light smoke, and that's literally it. I mean, Brabus does so much more to this car, there's so much more to the body kit and everything. You just can't do it on this one though, so very simple build, whatever you do with this car. Before we build it, very quick discussion. I've built this car a lot in the past as a Brabus E-Class, the EV12, and I think it is quite similar to that car as well. However, it does have a few more design cues from the bigger S-Class, and that's where I went this time. It's a very body kitted S-Class, and that does give us a little bit of a problem when we're trying to build it as the Brabus car, because the Brabus car is not heavily body kitted. It's actually an incredibly subtle car. It's more about the power that lies within. Still, this is the nearest we have to it, so that is why I have that build on this car. The car that you saw in the photograph for the video was one that was photographed by Shmee150 many years ago and popped onto his channel, and that's white because I really wanted not to have just all black cars. I wanted an example of a white one, but tons were built in black, and that's why I'm using the black photos below, because I think they are clearer to see exactly what's been done with the car and what liberties I've had to take. So going through the bumpers, I left the front bumpers as stock, and the reason is that even the Euro bumper there is less subtle than the lip that's on the real car. Stock on the rear. Exhaust, race exhaust with the 4 pipes I think works the nicest there. Stock on the hood. I would definitely put xenons on this car. Back in 2010 that was a big deal, they were the best lights you could get. The respray, I know it doesn't show, it's a slight bug, but it is an ice white metallic with a frost white pearl, and the secondary is exactly the same. The trim, the white examples I saw had a very pale trim, and I think cream works really well here. Stock on the roof. Stock on the skirts. These skirts of course are far too bold for the car that we're building. It's heavily body kitted, but what can you do? We certainly don't want to make them even bigger though. The spoiler, the lip spoiler, is nice, and I put it on for the traction benefits, but to be honest, none here does give a very small lip spoiler anyway as standard, and I honestly think that's better than the lip spoiler I had for the video. So if you're going to be strictly accurate, go none at this point. Suspension, the car's already slammed below even a Brabus SV12, so stock. And for the wheels, well, I took a slight liberty maybe. I don't think these are perhaps the closest we can get. Certainly the spokes are a bit close together, but you know, I really wanted the chrome wheel because the alloy in this game is too grey for me. I don't like it, and so I tend to go chrome if I want the shinier, brighter wheel, and that really restricted my selection. So in the end, high-end chrome, GT chrome. But if you find something more appropriate, you could do it. I mentioned with some of the other builds that whether you go none or light smoke is almost down to taste and what you fancy, because the tints on a lot of these cars can be very subtle. In this case I want none, but you could easily tint the car if you want to. That completes the build of the SV12R. Okay, the Comet S2 as the Brabus 820, based on the 911 Turbo S. The photo on the bottom right is the one I used in the garage tour, and that's because the car wasn't black. As I've mentioned in some other builds, if I could possibly build a not black one, I did, for a little bit of variety. So that was great, and we'll use it as the rear picture. But for more details we do need a side picture, so that's on the top right, and that's a typical black version of the 820. For the front aero, I've actually taken a picture of the more recently made cabriolet version, that's on the bottom right, but ignore the roof. We're just looking at that one really for the front bumpers, which takes us on to front bumpers. We have the tuner bumper, and as you can see it gives more carbon around the front, which works very well considering all this is black on the Brabus car. Rear is stock. For the exhaust, to be honest, any of the first 3 or 4 exhausts is fine, they are so similar. Fenders are stock, fog lights none, headlight covers stock. Hood, the hood catches are none. The hood itself I have gone stock. We shouldn't have this piece back here, but it does give the proper indentations. If you don't like the piece back there, you can go smooth, but you do lose your 2 grooves. So I go stock hood. For the interior, everything in here is stock, so pretty simple. I even think the stock lights work. There's no livery. For the plates, I almost kept the stock one on the front, being British, where we're forced to have front number plates, but hey, they look nicer without. So remove the plate holder. Put your own license plate on, of course. For the respray on this car, now I've seen them generally in this grey or very often in black. So it's very simple. Primary is either a classic rolled steel if you want this grey car, and I really wanted the grey one. There's so many black Brabus cars, but you could of course go classic black if you prefer. The secondary colour I think was wrong on the garage tour. I'm not too sure why it was yellow, and I'm worried if it was left from a previous build. Having looked at the 820s as much as I can, red stitching is common, and the red calipers are quite common. So just a classic Torino red will give us the stitching and the calipers. For trim colour, anything in these sort of dark anthracite or black colours is fine. And for the accent, certainly a while ago Porsche instruments were always yellow like this. Now I'm not too sure if that's quite carried through to the latest ones, but I like it, so race yellow for the accent. For the roof, nothing on the accessories, but we do want a carbon roof. Skirts, we definitely want this piece at the back here, so we want the race skirts. Splitters, small point of contention, the splitter is not this big on the Brabus. I think it's about the same size as this carbon splitter. However, the Brabus one has a tiny wing on the end. If I go canards, it's just too much. So I went carbon race splitter to sort of average out the amount of carbon at the front. But I would very much understand if you just said carbon splitter. Spoiler, there's quite a few that work, but in my opinion, this tuner wing here is almost perfect. No sun strip. Suspension, yeah, we want a decent stance on this, down at competition. With the wheels, you can get quite close to the wheels on these cars by going Mercy. Now you can't mix the colours up, but if you're doing the grey car like this, then straight into Sport, take the Mercy rims and paint them. I painted them black steel here, not quite fully black. I try to average out the colour. You could also go black. If you're building the car in black, then what I would advise is that you actually took the chrome version of the wheel, because alloy looks so horrible and grey in this game, and the chrome is just a little bit shinier than diamond cut. So let's just see what they look like. That's what I would put on the black car, even though they are a bit too shiny. Lastly, the windows. There are no wind deflectors. The windows, the tint is so slight on these cars, you could very easily, in fact, go with no tint at all. So the choice is yours. Do you go light tint, which is definitely too much, or do you go with nothing? I was on light smoke, but I will leave the final choice to you. And that is the build of the Brabus 820. Now for the Serrano as the Brabus version of the SLS Roadster. This is actually a rather simple build. Front bumper is stock. I almost put these parts on the custom to reference the little upward winglets on the Brabus car, but look how near the ground they are. They were just too silly. I went carbon on the back because there's a lot of carbon stuff on the back of the Brabus, but if you're unsure, stock I think also works very well. Maybe a bit better, dare I say. For the exhaust, you need to say stock because you want the quad pipes. If you go custom, you lose them. So stock on the hood. We don't want these vents. On the lights, I think you could go xenon or stock actually. I don't think it makes a great deal of odds. For the respray, you could either go with the crew black, of course, otherwise just a classic black works perfectly. Skirts. Now, these custom skirts are quite aggressive, but if you go stock, you have the skirt considerably higher up than this very low front splitter, and that looks daft. And again, the back is low, so I don't think you have much choice but to go custom just to make the car more cohesive. Spoiler is none. If you go none, you can just about see here a little ducktail lip, which is fine. That's all we really want. These are obviously silly. Suspension, I'm competition. Maybe it's a touch low, maybe sport would be closer. And for the wheels, these are fairly close, and they're one of my favourite wheels in the game, the concave racer from the street category. I do think they are more concave than what we're trying to build, but wow, do they look good. And we didn't really need the little diamond turned lip, but from pure visual aesthetics, even though it's not matching, I do like these lips on a dark car just to help break things up slightly. So not a lot of options on this car, not a great deal we could do to Brabusize it, but I think it's come out looking very nice. There's only one other option, the windows, but they make no difference with the hood down, so that completes the build. Okay then, the Panto as the little Brabus Ultimate 125, or a version of the Smart 4.2. On the chassis, well, we don't want those, so it's none. On the bumpers, the front bumper here, I went with the custom front splitter because there is a little bit of work done on the front, but it's half carbon and half painted, so you could also go carbon front splitter to reference the carbon part, really. Up to you. Rear bumpers you need to go stock because otherwise it paints them weird. With the exhaust, the real car has a triple exhaust here, 3 round ones and 2 round ones on the stock exhaust is the nearest you can go. On the grille, well, we don't want to add these, so that's nothing on the grille. Lights you could xenon or leave standard. Plate is up to you. On the respray, primary and secondary are a crew hex that you can see on the screen now, and the pearlescent is a Mariner blue. I think it works really well. The alternative for somebody building this and not wanting to use a crew colour, I would say, is ultra blue from the classic selection. So if we just find that, that is ultra blue on the top, the crew colour on the bottom. You see there's still quite a difference, but I suspect if you did the primary and the secondary as ultra blue, you would probably no longer notice that difference once it was in your garage. So that would be your option. It is certainly the closest. Racing blue is too dark, light blue is almost grey. So yeah, nice crew colour there. Incidentally, if you're going to make a Mansory build on this car, there is a Mansory version, and if you've got some sort of nice purple like this, this is actually Porsche Ultraviolet, but a nice purple on here and some other mods, you can make the Mansory version of the car as well. Okay, moving on, there's no roll cage. Roof. Now, you've seen from the photos I've been a bit cheeky because they're using the convertible version of the car and we don't have that. So I gave it the carbon roof to show as much as I could a convertible version closed. Skirts. I think stock skirts looks a bit closer, but if you look at the splitter, this is all a little bit high and I just think the thing looks more cohesive like that with the low skirt. Spoiler, well, I think the real one has a tiny bit of a black spoiler here because there's a hoop here that I think it's attached to. It's hard to see on all the photos. Well, as I don't want any of these, it's a pretty simple choice to leave it alone. Lowered suspension, that's about the right sort of height. Onto the wheels. The wheels we're looking at had a partial circumference in blue. And all the end wheels, the last 3 or 4 look here, and high end, you can have a coloured ring. So I went with the Cheetah Carbon R, even though the spokes are a little bit dense. Painted in fluorescent blue. It's a little bit bright, but the other blues are a bit dark, I think, or not bold enough. If you say, I don't care about that bit of blue, you could also go into, I think it's street, something like, I think Forged Star is probably close. You could have something like that and simply paint that wheel in black if you preferred. For the windows, you could go either none or a light smoke. Light smoke is too dark, none is probably just a touch too light, so that really comes down to you. That completes the build of our Brabus Ultimate 125. As promised, a quick bonus section. What have I done with these cars? Well, the coil Voltic I bought on sale just for this tour. My other Voltic represents my own Lotus Elise and will never be changed, so this one has simply been sold. I'm going to keep the S12 Coupe as it is. I really like that show version of the car. The neon has already been changed back to an ultraviolet Taycan 4S that I specified on the Porsche site. The STD, the Range Rover, it has gone back in the Best of British collection as is, but I am strongly tempted to go back to my Overfinch video and rebuild it as that car. The black and gold G-Class, I rather like the look on that, and it's been a Mansory car for so much of its life. I think it's time for it to settle down a bit and be a Brabus. I've never really liked the GLS. I'm not much into SUVs, and a model of a car that gives me almost no customization is not much use. I sold mine years ago, and although it's a removed car, I was able to buy this one in a sale purely for this video, so that's gone. I absolutely love the shaft of V12, and mine is built at the moment as a custom S550. And as it came up on sale, rather than disturbing my current build, I bought it on sale for this video, so it's already gone. The Comet S2, I think I have 3 of these. There's so many builds you can do on them, and I do like the Brabus one. I know a lot of people like something more subtle, but you know, I prefer a little bit more colour to the car, so I think inevitably it will be rebuilt as some form of road-going Porsche special. The SLS, that's gone back to my Mercedes garage, but it will be rebuilt because there's 1 or 2 too many black cars in that garage, and I think this car, for me, would look better in a nice bright colour. And as for the little Panto, the Brabus Ultimate 125, well, this was the first Brabus I built. I wanted to change the car a bit from the Mansory edition, so I built this one, and it's from that and a comment I received that this whole tour came to be. But you know, I haven't got room for this cute little car anymore. Drives better than it looks, but I have no need for it, and unlike so many, you can buy it again, so it's gone. Well, I hope you found a build that you enjoyed and maybe will replicate out of those 10. I don't know if many people will be watching the outro. It's that sort of video where you pick and choose, but if you are, it means you've watched quite a bit, so thank you very much for that. If you liked anything, please like, and of course if you like real cars in GTA like we're always endeavouring to achieve on the channel, then a sub would be heartily appreciated. But until the next garage tour or build or other IRL car related video, I'm out of here, so thank you so much for watching.